And so a couple things to talk about with it. First one is just it underperformed. It only made about 35 million. It was projected like 55 million. So
yeah, I even saw some early projections that were like, oh wait, maybe it might get like 80 to 90 million. And I was like, oh wow, this is like this is awesome. Yeah.
And then 33 million. So there's a couple different things that kind of came out of it. The first one is like, oh man, like what went wrong? And disappoint, because anytime you say one number and come below it, you sense that disappointment. And then you have a group of people that want to spin that into a narrative that I just don't think is even remotely close to good analysis. And so the whole go woke, go broke, it's a bomb, it's a failure, it's a disaster. Honestly, I just don't see any of that. First off, just we'll talk about we'll talk about how woke it is in just a moment, but on just the level of the box office stuff, the movie cost $85 million to make. $85 million. So right off the bat, your expectations and their expectations for what it's going to do is not the same thing as Endgame. It's not the same thing as Captain Marvel. It's not the same thing as Black Panther. It's not the same thing as Spider-Man. All of those movies had at least double its budget, maybe triple its budget, right off the bat. You just have to rearrange what you're imagining this movie can and should do at the box office. Second one, globally, it made about $81 million in its first 3 days. So it's right below its production budget. I tweeted this out and immediately a bunch of people agreed with me like, yeah, let's put things in perspective. You always have people that respond back, but the marketing. Right. I get it. Box office analysis is a lot more complicated than just production budget and box office grosses. You also have to factor in that studios have their cut of the movies and certain people get a percentage of the gross. It's complicated. But as a starting point, a movie that makes back its production budget globally in its first 3 days, that's just not a bomb. It's not a disaster.
It's a success, actually.
It's like by any reasonable standards, you would say, okay, we're doing okay, but we expect these movies to do really, really well, and they tend to be front-loaded. Other really important piece of like information to factor in when you're talking about this specific movie, we had the Oscars this weekend. One of the Best Picture nominees, Ford vs. Ferrari, production budget, $100 million, $15 million more than Birds of Prey. Opening weekend in the U.S., $31 million, slightly less than Birds of Prey. Not one person put out a video, Ford versus Ferrari, it's a bomb, it's a failure. Nobody did that because that's not a bad number for a movie with that budget. Granted, different genres. Dad movie, gonna have better legs by the nature of it. Oscar movie, gonna have better legs because of the nature of it. Comic book movie, very front-loaded, gotcha. Tracking with it. But we're talking about new ones. And if two movies with comparable budgets and comparable opening weekends, two wildly different interpretations, that's probably means that there's a lot of people overreacting. And everyone that is kind of like hyping up this, it bombed, it's a failure, they all seem to have that go woke, go broke thing as part of it. It's just another feminist. I don't get it. Like, Charlie's Angels the movie started off, and it's literally this chauvinistic guy being like, women belong in the kitchen. Like, are you good at cooking? And she's like, I'm good at a lot of things. I can even fix a car. Like, fix a car? Women don't need to fix a... Like, it starts off like that. When I think feminist agenda, man-hating, like, it's a movie like this that literally starts off with just like, what is this? Like, what am I watching right now? That's what I think of. I don't think of it's a movie where Harley Quinn is a great fighter and shoots things and it's all a fantasy in her head. And I haven't even heard the compelling argument besides all the guys in it are bad. But if you just swap the movie out and say you have an action movie with all men as leads, the chief of police is normally a jerk. The bad guy's normally a guy. There's a bunch of male henchmen that are bad, and someone's betrayed by it's not even I don't even understand watching a movie like counting who's good and who's bad and making these charts. Like, I don't even understand that thought process. And it seems in my mind they're doing the exact thing that they're accusing other people of doing.
Oh yeah.
And that's where I go, if you just watch this movie on its own merits, you would not walk out of it being like, what? The agenda?
Yeah. I mean, that was like one of the things that I loved about it was like its messaging was great, and it was done so tastefully. Like there weren't any like, you know, people give that moment in Endgame, like the girl power team up moment in Endgame, a lot of crap. Maybe rightfully so. It's probably a little pandering. But like in this movie, like there was none of that. Like it was all just like these are like, this is what we're doing. These are the characters. These are the journeys they're going on. This is our messaging here. So like I don't know. Like it all just felt consistent. It wasn't like everyone was like, oh, let's try to push an agenda down my throat. It's like, no, you just think it is because that's what you
that's
inherently
the lens
want to believe.
by which you're viewing the world. You are on the look. You're on a witch hunt for that, which is the thing you're accusing other people of. No. Like I get it when you're talking about, like I said, Charlie's Angels, and the movie starts off, and I'm like, come on, like you're preaching your agenda at me. You're it's so on the nose. If you have a message you want to communicate, tell a story. That's what Birds of Prey does. Harley Quinn, Birds of Prey, as it's now called.
Right, Harley. Well, that's only on ticketing services. They haven't actually officially changed the name.
We'll get to that in just a second.
Yeah. So, because first of all, I do want to talk about the title thing because, like, I think the title that they actually gave it is perfect for the film. Like, Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn. Now, look, you can examine
like
that title. I do, because I think that it perfectly represents the mind of Harley, what she's going through in that moment. The Birds of Prey, like I understand like the symbolism behind that and like what they're trying to get at with that. Also, the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn, you can like her whole speech about, do you know what a Harlequin is? Like in the bar, that gives the subtitle of that film like a whole new context, you know? And so I just feel like that it is so perfect for the movie, but from a marketing standpoint,
exactly,
not really the greatest.
Right.
So like, yeah, maybe they probably should have called the movie Harley Quinn, but I think like based off of the trailers and everything, you still know it's a Harley Quinn movie, or you still know that she's in it. So, like, I don't think the title was necessarily the problem when it comes to it. I think it was more so, like, they needed to lean heavily into Harley Quinn, which I think they did a little bit, but I don't know. They couldn't quite, like, find a target audience with it.
They couldn't capture the experience of watching the movie with the trailers they put out.
Which, you know, having seen the film, that's kind of hard to do. Like, it is such a just like wild kind of roller coaster of a movie that is like basically the product of someone's like inner mind, like the inner workings of their mind. So like, I get that's hard to capture.
Yeah. It's all kind of combined for me. Because for me, I didn't get a good understanding of what they were going for with the film. Like, we're going to do a Birds of Prey movie starring Harley Quinn. So immediately, I know enough about the Birds of Prey and Harley Quinn to go, well, that doesn't make any sense. That's a weird thing to say. And so then they put out the trailer, and it's very clearly a Harley Quinn-led film. And then they start teasing the Birds of Prey at the end of it. And so it's like, I don't know what this is. I don't know how this is going to work. And then in some of the stuff they tried to do with the way they captured the action in it, like the leg breaking scene at the beginning is in the trailers. And I thought that from watching the trailer that she jumped on his balls. I actually thought that's what was in and I think I said that in my trailer reactions. And I was like, that's so juvenile. And then it like zooms in on his face. And so then, and I legitimately thought while watching the movie that they used a different clip in the trailer than in the movie because they couldn't show the leg snapping. And then I went back to cut my review of it, and I was like, wait, no, in the trailer, it's the same. You see his leg snap. Like, okay, that's the same shot. I don't believe in the movie it does the zoom in, though, or at least certainly not the way it's cut. When you watch the movie, you see it, and it's like, oh, whoa, Harley's crazy. When you watch it in the trailer, it comes off like 1960s Batman, like, oh, look at a guy making a funny reaction. And
see, I actually, in the trailer, that came off as like very Tarantino to me.
in the context of everything else, I didn't know how it fit together. And like when I watched the trailer, that was the whole thing to me. It's like I just don't. They put out these images and it looked like CW shots. And then they put out the trailer and she's drinking and like, do you know what a Harley Quinn is? And then she snaps the guy's leg, zooms in on the face. And so I couldn't grab hold of where we were going with some of it. Yeah. And then you watch the movie and you just immediately I don't want to go into spoilers specifically, but it starts off with kind of her backstory of sorts in a way that you're like, you immediately get this movie is her mind telling her story. And it just interpreted totally differently. Yeah. And so it was what I thought the marketing on it was really bad.
They probably needed to play more into the action and kind of fun that was had like in the movie, like play into like the I don't know, like the like I guess that's the only thing I really think of. Play into the style, play into the action, get people really excited for it based off of that. And maybe less of trying to capture like I don't know, like just the wackiness of what's going on because I mean literally every single person I talked to was like I was like, oh yeah, Birds of Prey, you got to go see it. It's so good. And they're like, what? That movie looks so bad. Yeah. It looked terrible.
It's
like
everyone.
I don't think that. Yeah. So it's like if people are saying that like based off of the trailers, based off of the marketing, it's like okay, so obviously you didn't market this movie. Well,
right.
Just
something went horribly wrong with the marketing. And it's weird, especially watching the marketing after you've seen the movie, it's hard to even pinpoint why. Like we're right now, we're like, I don't even know like what was wrong with it. But like I watched the trailers. I was not excited to watch the movie. And then I heard all this positive buzz, saw it, and I was like, that was a lot of fun. Was I just amped up in the moment? Let me watch it a second time. Saw it a second time. I was like, yeah, especially as it went along with the style of it, the way the action was shot, like Harley's actually like has emotion. And then I watch the trailer and I go, a lot of that is in there. Like it kicks off and like she's like, do you know like these some of the most heartfelt scenes in the movie? Do you know what a Harley Quinn is? It's in the trailer. So the best shots in the action are in the trailer. The stuff that I'm raving about the cool action being cool, it's all in the trailer. But for whatever reason, it just was not. It didn't capture the experience of it. And I wonder if maybe it's even if they needed to do like have a trailer that was more like a longer scene as opposed to like doing like quick cuts. Like would it play better if you had I would think it's kind of a negative example, or I don't know, actually don't need to cast judgment of like the first trailer for Frozen 2, the first minute is just Elsa running into water. And it like plays out this whole scene. So if you could take like a scene in this movie that kind of captured it a little bit, and then the second half, now that you've accustomed our brains to what we're really watching, but I don't know. Actually, the first trailer, also the musical choice, I thought did a kind of is a little bit too serious while being whimsical, and so it didn't feel quite right either. So anyway, that's some thoughts on it.